Time for another quick witch session, hey? Love it. I talk about a thing that's been gnawing away at me all week. I've tried a couple of times with various different agencies to get it out of my system, but it's just not working, it's not happening. So, obviously, thought I'd build a fire, get rid of that, but also, I figured I'd have a whinge at you. It's always good, isn't it? Now, so the thing was that I was in one of these bloody groups on Facebook, you know the sort, we're all in them, and a thing was said, and you know how it is, anyone says anything, be prepared for a hail of stones and arrows. But in this case, it got me to thinking about one of the usual ones that's used a lot these days, and that is the simple phrase, and what are your sources? Now, this touches on another subject where people say, is there actually any backup for what you're saying, or is this just UPG, unverified personal narcissist? I guess the UPG kind of makes it sound a little bit more, a little bit more serious and academic, because let's be honest, oh, they love that stuff these days, they really do. Don't get me wrong, love me some books, got a whole library of the damn things, and I think reading is so important. I told my kids it's the most important lesson you'll ever learn. But we're talking about witchcraft. Okay? And the truth of it is, you're not going to find it in a book. A lot of the traditional witches these days, they go on about it, don't they? They say, oh, not Wicca. Well, here's one for you. It was little Scott Cunningham who actually said in his Wicca for the personal practitioner, singular, solo practitioner, something like that. I don't know. I read it like 30 years ago or something. I don't know. That said, it's one of my favourites actually. Not just because it was a bit of a rogue move at the time and he got in trouble for it, but that aside, he makes a point in it of saying that you can seek out wisdom in books if you like, but it's out here where you're going to find actual wisdom. So even Wiccans get this, but the modern traditional witches don't. So you say something, what's your sources? It's always tempting to say, my sources, bitch, I'm a witch. Or, in the case of mine, when I'm usually saying something, it's usually something that I learnt at Bill's bloody table, or from something that he led me towards. So, what's my sources? I don't know, someone who was there. I've actually been pulled up for that, I remember one guy said, what's the source? And I said, well, Bill taught me this. And he said, oh, like he'd know. And I said, well, yeah, actually would. Here's the trip, He was actually there. He was actually there. Getting a bit bloody hot back here. I'm going to move a bit closer. Get a little bit more intimate, as they say. Don't worry, not that intimate. But no, anyway. How's that? Yeah. So, anyway, I said, oh, Bill told me. He said, oh, like he'd know. I said, well, yeah, he would. He was there. Well, where did he get it? What books was he reading? What books was he reading? Man, he's mentioned in some of the Gardnerian letters. Sent Fry Gerald to people. He was there before the repeal over there of witchcraft. He was investigating our particular line. I think it's something like a decade before Marple started sparking up about it. He was initiated on the shores of the River Crouch, for God's sake. Anyway, I'm getting back to it because I'm wandering off the track. You should know me by now. Don't let me do it. You need to pull me back to the point. What are your sources? What are my sources? Well, here's the funny thing. When someone says, what are your sources? I know full well what they really mean to say is, now tell me that this is in a book that I already agree with. I've often thought that I might just start saying, oh, it's in Gemma Gary. She's one of the modern doyens. Everyone loves her. Just say it's in one of her books, and they go, oh, okay. To be honest, a few of them will say, well, I'm going to look into that. Fewer still actually will. And even then, all these books. Here's the other thing. Why are you doing it? I've got lots of books. I love them. I'm always interested to read new things, okay? But you know what? After 20 years, 20 plus years now, after 20 plus years, I'm still doing exactly the same damn thing. You know why? Because what I was given works. So I don't need a new system. You see this a lot, people saying, oh, well, actually, they're into this, and they do this, and they do this, and they do this, and they do this. Why? Doesn't any of them actually work properly? Is that what you're saying? No, here's the trick. When you hear people talk, sometimes the old universal translator tells you exactly what they're really trying to say. What are your sources? Tell me a book that I already agree with, so that I can agree with you, and you can be part of the mutual thing. And here's another trick. You ever notice that no one ever asks that Wiccans? No one ever asks them. Wiccans ask it a lot, especially of things that they don't like. So really, it's saying, I don't like you, I don't believe you, now tell me it's in a book I do agree with so that I can go, you're all right, and you can be in the special club. Don't want to be in a special club. The other thing is that I think it really kind of frightening, because this has become a thing now. Look, I really do agree with scholarship. I think it's really important. It's kind of like people ask me about my relationship with Crying for the Moon by Ronnie Hutton. Well, first things first, he is a Wiccan. He is a Wiccan. He didn't mention that. No transparency there. And good thing too, otherwise he certainly would never have got that book up off the ground. He certainly would never have gotten through the whole uni rigmarole, because they would have said, you're another quack, on your way. But he did. He put out that book, and it's been vital. It's been really good in so many reasons, so many ways. But here's the other thing. It's got a real number of shortcomings. It's got some real problems with it. And at the end of the day, not many people who read it even paid attention to it. What he said was, I'm looking for a paper trail. It goes to here. Beyond that, who knows? But this is what I'm after, is the paper trail. It was great for Gardnerians. Don't get me wrong. Well, it's great for Gardnerians who accept that Gardner put Gardnerianism together. Good for them. But since then, everyone who reads it seems to think that anything that old Ronnie didn't give the thumbs up to, they can say, but Hutton says, like it's abracadabra or something. They can say, but Hutton says, and you'll vanish in a puff of logic. It doesn't work like that. He was the first to say it's more complicated than that. And since then, actually, he's become more and more along those lines. But you won't find that in the revised editions. So at the end of the day, I'm all for people doing research. I'm all for academia. I'm all for that. I mean, I did 6 years of uni myself. But at the end of the day, okay, you're not going to find out the things that you need to know in a bloody book. And if you're looking for something older than Gerald Gardner, chances are you're not going to find it in a book either, because we didn't have them. It's like so much of the stuff that's around these days, the traditional witch stuff. It was interesting, I read one the other day that actually admitted that the stang is a thing that was used in a couple of places here and there, and it's become, par excellence. Everyone then says, oh, we all use them. I don't know, we never used one. Never used one at all. Simple truth is, most people that go back looking for traditional witchcraft, they don't find it for a couple of reasons. One, they don't actually know what they're looking for. What they're actually looking for is Wicca, because that's what underscores most people's knowledge of witchcraft. Point blank, Wicca. So they go back looking for something like that, they don't find it, and you wouldn't, it didn't exist. And so it didn't exist. Oh, okay, fair enough. The other point is, if you don't know what you're looking for, then the idea that you're not going to find the paper trail, you're not going to find the book saying this is how I did it. At best, you're going to find footprints. You find footprints. Like our Wile E. Coyote, falls off a cliff, boom, into the ground. It's an outline of the Wile E. Coyote. He gets out and walks away. How do you know Wile E. Coyote was there? Well, there's an outline. If you were shown a picture of Wile E. Coyote and you looked at that, you'd say, oh, he was here. That's how it is with a lot of traditional witchcraft. You'll find footsteps, footprints that match the feet that people were telling you of the people who were there. That's about as close as you get. And then you get actually to know a couple of people, you get inside somewhere, and then they tell you all these stories, and you spend the rest of your life thinking, well, that's a bit dodgy, but then the more you discover about it, the more you look at the times and places, the more you discover, well, that fits it almost perfectly. In my case, of course, largely most of the information came from people who were trying to convince me that I was either a dupe or a liar. I never really went looking for it because, for me, proof is in the pudding. I did the work, I was shown things, I was told things. That's good enough for me. I tried them out. If it works, it's good enough for me. Law of pragmatism. Then later on, someone comes along and says, well, actually, you know what? As it turns out, I've done this research and it says this. And it's supposed to debunk what I'm saying, and I find myself going, that just proves it. My favourite was, and I remember making a phone call to Bill one morning, and I'd said, I'd been talking to George, and I'd been saying, like, what was the go with the Canadian? Seriously, I mean, was everyone there in it? And he said, well, yeah, pretty much, in one way or another. Not all the same, not all the same. And I said, what, so like, the old initiation, you're in amongst it then. His statement was, that's not the half of it. You wait till you find out who else came to town. I remember telling this to Bill. And he said, it's funny you should say that. We've just received some stuff from overseas where someone, of course, again, researching to tell us how dumb we are, turns up the fact that the old Pickengill family and the Morell family over at Hadley intermarried. Wow. I guess that's kind of embarrassing for all those cunning folk and witches were totally different, had nothing to do with each other. If they were the case, they wouldn't know about each other. Simple truth is, called a witch if people didn't like you, called cunning folk if they did. Of course they were all in it together. Of course they were all together. But again, you're not going to find that in a book. You're going to find that by doing the work, hearing things, and then later on, some other guy coming up and saying, I did this research and it discovers that these two families intermarried around about the same time, just as we were told. Unverified personal gnosis. Talk about verified personal gnosis. Anyway, maybe I've rabbled it out of my system now. Just remember, the next time someone says, what are your sources? Try not to just say, fucking hell, there's too many of you outsider book readers. Not enough people actually doing the work. Fire's nearly boiled down. I better put some more wood on it. Remember what I said? See you in the field.